I remember the exact moment Uncle Marcus told me I wasn't welcome anymore. I was standing in the hallway of the Bennett estate, my small suitcase already packed by the housekeeper. The marble floors gleamed under the chandelier, cold and perfect, just like everything else in that house. "Kieran, you're 17 now," Uncle Marcus said, not even looking at me. "We've done our duty. Your parents' life insurance ran out 2 years ago. It's time you make your own way." My cousin Trevor smirked from the staircase, arms crossed. He was heading to Yale in the fall, funded by the family fortune. Meanwhile, I was being shown the door with $300 and a bus ticket. Aunt Patricia appeared briefly, clutching her pearls. "We gave you a roof, didn't we? Some orphans aren't so lucky." Her voice was sharp, dismissive. My throat tightened, but I refused to cry in front of them. I'd spent 5 years in this house after my parents died in that car crash. 5 years of being reminded I was charity. 5 years of sleeping in the smallest room while Trevor got everything. I picked up my suitcase and walked toward the door. Uncle Marcus called after me, "Don't come crawling back." I wouldn't. But one day, they'd need me. I just didn't know it yet. The first night on my own, I slept in a youth shelter downtown. The mattress was thin, the room smelled like disinfectant, but it was mine. Nobody looked at me like I was a burden. Nobody whispered about how much I cost them. I'd saved some money from odd jobs over the years, mowing lawns, tutoring kids, fixing computers. It wasn't much, maybe $800 total, but it was something. I counted it that night under the flickering fluorescent light, planning my next move. School was still 2 weeks away from ending. I couldn't quit, not when I was so close to graduating. So I found a tiny apartment, more like a storage room, above a laundromat. The landlord, an older man named Mr. Howell, took pity on me. $200 a month, he said. But you fix things when they break. I agreed immediately. My routine became brutal. I attended school during the day, worked at a fast food place in the evening, then stayed up late studying. My grades had always been decent, but now I pushed harder. I needed a scholarship. I needed a way out. Trevor texted me once, "Heard you're flipping burgers now. How the mighty have fallen." I blocked his number and kept moving forward. Graduation day arrived in June. I sat alone in the crowd of families, watching other students hug their parents. When my name was called, I walked across that stage with my head high. No one cheered for me, but I didn't care. I'd made it. That summer, I worked 3 jobs, fast food, grocery stocking, and weekend construction gigs. My body ached constantly, but my bank account slowly grew. I'd been accepted to State University with a partial scholarship. I just needed to cover the rest. One afternoon, while sorting through my parents' old belongings, stuff Uncle Marcus had shoved in a box, I found my dad's journal. He'd been an engineer, brilliant with numbers. Inside were notes about investments, stock analysis, and something called compound growth. I spent nights reading his entries, studying his thinking. Dad had been careful with money, strategic. He wrote about patience, about seeing opportunities others missed. One entry stood out: "Wealth isn't about luck. It's about pattern recognition and timing." I started researching stocks online at the public library. I opened a small trading account with $500. My first investment was in a tech company Dad had mentioned years ago. It seemed risky, but his notes suggested it had potential. 3 months later, that stock doubled. College was different. Nobody knew I was the orphan kid. Nobody knew I lived in the cheapest dorm, eating ramen most nights. I kept my head down, studied finance and computer science, and continued trading stocks with my small account. By sophomore year, I'd turned that initial $500 into $12,000. I was careful, methodical, following patterns Dad had outlined. I reinvested everything, never touching the profits. I also started a small side business, helping students fix their computers and build websites. Word spread quickly. Soon, I was making enough to cover my expenses without the brutal job schedule. Meanwhile, I heard occasional news about the Bennetts through old classmates. Trevor had dropped out of Yale after 2 years, partying too much. Uncle Marcus's real estate company was doing well, or so everyone thought. Aunt Patricia was still hosting her charity galas, pretending to care about causes she barely understood. I felt nothing when I heard these updates. They were strangers to me now. One night, my roommate asked, "Do you ever talk to your family?" I didn't look up from my laptop. "I don't have family." He didn't ask again. By junior year, my trading account had grown to $80,000. I was getting better at reading market trends, identifying undervalued companies. Senior year brought unexpected success. A website I'd built for a local startup caught the attention of a regional business owner. He offered me a contract to develop a customer management system for his chain of stores. The pay was $15,000. I nearly cried when I saw the offer letter. I worked nights and weekends, coding furiously, testing every feature. When I delivered the final product, the client was thrilled. He gave me a bonus and referred me to 3 other businesses. Suddenly, I had clients. Real clients who valued my work. I graduated with honors, debt-free, with over $200,000 in combined savings and investments. I'd done it alone, with no safety net, no family support, nothing but my dad's journal and my own determination. My first decision after graduation was to move to the city, find a small office space, and officially register my business, Brooks Digital Solutions. The name felt right. Brooks was my mom's maiden name, a small tribute to parents who would have been proud. Within 6 months, I had 12 employees and contracts with mid-sized companies across 3 states. My investment portfolio was nearing $500,000. I lived modestly, reinvesting profits, building something real. I never forgot where I came from. And I never forgot who threw me away. 3 years after graduation, Brooks Digital Solutions was thriving. We specialized in custom software for logistics companies, a niche market I'd identified during my research. Our revenue hit $8 million annually. I moved into a decent apartment, nothing flashy, just comfortable. I drove a reliable used car. I didn't need luxury. I needed security, the kind Uncle Marcus's money never provided me. One evening, I received a LinkedIn message from someone named Sophia Bennett. My stomach dropped. I clicked on her profile. She was a distant cousin, someone I'd met maybe twice at family gatherings before my parents died. Her message was brief: "Kieran, I hope you're doing well. I heard you started a business. Congratulations. I'm reaching out because Uncle Marcus is in trouble. The family needs help. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen for 10 minutes. The rational part of me wanted to delete it. They'd abandoned me when I had nothing. Why should I care now? But curiosity gnawed at me. "What kind of trouble?" I replied, "What kind of trouble?" Her response came within minutes: "Financial. The real estate market crashed his company. He's losing everything. I thought maybe you could help, or at least talk to him." I closed my laptop. They needed me now. I didn't respond to Sophia for 3 days. Part of me wanted to ignore it completely, let Uncle Marcus face whatever consequences he'd earned. But another part, the part that still remembered being a scared 12-year-old kid after my parents died, felt something stir. Finally, I agreed to meet Sophia at a coffee shop downtown. She arrived looking nervous, clutching her purse. She was older now, probably 28, with kind eyes that reminded me of my mom. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. I nodded, sipping my black coffee. She explained the situation. Uncle Marcus had overleveraged his properties during the boom years, taking out massive loans to expand. When the market crashed, property values plummeted. He owed banks millions, and foreclosures were starting. The Bennett estate itself was at risk. "Trevor's been useless," Sophia said bitterly. "He's burned through his trust fund. Aunt Patricia is in denial. The whole family is panicking." I listened without expression. "I know they treated you terribly," she continued, meeting my eyes. I was young then, and I'm sorry I didn't speak up. But there are good people in this family who'll lose everything because of Marcus's mistakes. I set down my cup. Why should I care? Sophia flinched but didn't look away. Because you're better than them. I told Sophia I'd think about it, but I already knew what I'd do. Not for Uncle Marcus. Not for Trevor or Aunt Patricia. But for the principle of it, proving that the orphan they discarded had become something they could never be. I contacted my financial advisor and accountant. We reviewed Uncle Marcus's situation through public records and Sophia's information. It was worse than she described. He was drowning in debt, facing lawsuits, and had maybe 6 months before bankruptcy. The solution was clear but expensive. Someone would need to buy out his debts, restructure the properties, and essentially take control of his company. It would cost roughly $12 million. I had $18 million in liquid assets. My advisor raised an eyebrow. This is personal, isn't it? I didn't answer. 2 weeks later, I scheduled a meeting at the Bennett estate. Sophia arranged it, telling Uncle Marcus only that a potential investor wanted to discuss his situation. When I pulled up to that mansion in my modest sedan, memories flooded back. The same fountain in the circular driveway. The same imposing front doors. The same cold, perfect exterior. I rang the doorbell. Aunt Patricia answered, her face older, more drawn. She didn't recognize me at first. Then her eyes widened. Karen? I smiled politely. Hello, Aunt Patricia. I'm here to see Uncle Marcus. Uncle Marcus sat in his study, papers scattered across his desk. He'd aged poorly, gray hair, deep lines around his eyes, slumped shoulders. When I walked in, he froze. You, he breathed. Me, I replied calmly, taking a seat across from him without being invited. Trevor appeared in the doorway, looking softer around the middle, eyes bloodshot. What's he doing here? I ignored him, focusing on Uncle Marcus. I hear you're in trouble. Uncle Marcus's jaw tightened. Pride flickered across his face, but desperation quickly replaced it. Sophia said an investor was coming. I'm the investor. The room went silent. Trevor laughed, a harsh sound. You? What could you possibly? $12 million, I interrupted, looking only at Uncle Marcus. That's what you need to clear your debts and restructure. I can provide it. Uncle Marcus leaned back, studying me. Why would you do that? I pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. These are the terms. I buy controlling interest in your company. You stay on as a consultant with a modest salary. The properties get restructured and managed properly. Your family keeps the estate, but under my ownership. Aunt Patricia gasped from the doorway. You can't be serious. I finally looked at her. I'm completely serious. Uncle Marcus stared at the contract for a long time. I watched emotions play across his face, humiliation, anger, disbelief. Trevor paced behind him, muttering about lawyers and tricks. This is insane, Trevor spat. He's trying to steal everything. I kept my voice level. No, I'm offering to save everything. You have 3 other offers on the table, according to public records. All of them involve liquidating assets and leaving your family with nothing. My offer lets you keep the estate and provides your family with income. Uncle Marcus's hands shook slightly as he held the papers. You were just a kid. How did you? I learned from my father, I said quietly. The man you never asked about. The brother-in-law you barely tolerated. That hit him. I saw it in his eyes. Sophia entered the room, positioning herself beside me. Uncle Marcus, you don't have a choice. This is the best offer you'll get. Aunt Patricia's voice cracked. We took you in. We raised you. I turned to her slowly. You gave me a roof while spending my parents' insurance money. You reminded me daily that I was a burden. You threw me out at 17 with bus fare. My voice stayed calm, but each word landed like a stone. This isn't charity. This is business. Uncle Marcus signed the papers 3 days later, after his lawyers confirmed I had the funds and the terms were legitimate. The transfer took 2 weeks to finalize. I officially became the majority owner of Bennett Real Estate Holdings and the Bennett Estate property. My first act was restructuring the company's debts, negotiating with banks, and implementing actual financial management, something Uncle Marcus had never prioritized. I brought in my own team, people I trusted. Trevor tried to fight it, threatening lawsuits, making scenes. But he had no legal ground. His trust fund was gone, spent on parties and bad investments. He was just noise now. I let Uncle Marcus keep his office and his consultant title. I even paid him a fair salary, more than he deserved, but enough to maintain dignity. It wasn't about cruelty. It was about proving a point. Aunt Patricia avoided me entirely, staying in her wing of the estate. I rarely visited the property anyway. I had managers for that. Sophia became my liaison with the family, feeding me updates. Most relatives were shocked but grateful. Some whispered that I was vindictive. I didn't care about their opinions. One evening, Sophia called me. "Trevor's asking for money again." I sighed. "What happened?" "Gambling debts." I was silent for a moment. Then I said, "Tell him no. He needs to figure it out himself." 6 months into managing Bennett Real Estate Holdings, I'd stabilized the company. Properties were being renovated and sold strategically. Revenue started climbing. The family was no longer facing ruin. I received a handwritten letter one afternoon, delivered to my office. The handwriting was shaky but familiar, Uncle Marcus. It read, "Kieran, I don't expect forgiveness. I treated you terribly after your parents died. I was dealing with my own financial stress, and I took it out on you. That's no excuse. You were a child who needed family, and I failed you. Watching you succeed despite everything I did has been humbling. Thank you for saving us, even though we didn't deserve it. Marcus." I read it twice, then filed it away. It didn't erase the past, but it was something. That weekend, I visited the Bennett estate. Uncle Marcus was in the garden, trimming hedges himself, something I'd never seen him do before. When he saw me, he straightened up, looking uncertain. "I got your letter," I said. He nodded slowly. I meant every word. We stood in awkward silence for a moment. Then I said, "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because my parents would have wanted me to help family, even family that hurt me." His eyes glistened. Over the next year, Bennett Real Estate Holdings became one of the most respected property management companies in the region. I expanded into commercial real estate, using strategies my father had outlined in his journal years ago. My personal net worth crossed $50 million. I started a scholarship fund for orphan teenagers, offering full college funding plus living expenses. It was named after my parents, the Brooks Memorial Scholarship. The first year, we supported 25 kids. I met each one personally, telling them the same thing: your circumstances don't define your future. Sophia joined my company as a project manager. She was smart, organized, and genuinely kind. We worked well together, and slowly, she became one of my closest friends. Trevor, meanwhile, spiraled. He'd moved into a small apartment, working odd jobs. I heard through Sophia that he'd hit rock bottom, lost, angry, blaming everyone but himself. One night, he showed up at my office, drunk. Security called me down. He stood in the lobby, swaying, eyes red. "You took everything," he slurred. I kept my distance, calm. "I saved everything. You destroyed yourself." He lunged toward me, but security grabbed him. As they escorted him out, he shouted, "I'm family. You're supposed to help me." I watched him go, feeling nothing but pity. 2 years after taking over Bennett Real Estate Holdings, I received an unexpected call. It was from a major development firm based in New York. They wanted to acquire my company for $90 million. I sat in stunned silence as the offer was explained. They'd been watching my growth, impressed by the turnaround and expansion. They wanted my expertise and my portfolio. I asked for time to think. That evening, I sat in my apartment, staring at my father's journal. I'd accomplished more than I'd ever imagined. I'd gone from homeless at 17 to a multimillionaire at 26. I'd saved the family that abandoned me, started a scholarship program, built something meaningful. But was I done? I called Sophia. They offered $90 million for the company. She was quiet for a moment. Are you going to take it? I didn't answer immediately. Then I said, what do you think I should do? I think, she said carefully, you should do whatever brings you peace. I made my decision that night. I would sell the majority stake but keep partial ownership and stay on as a consultant. The sale would give me capital to expand the scholarship program nationwide and invest in other ventures. The deal closed 3 months later. I walked away with $75 million after taxes. With the sale finalized, I restructured my life. I moved to a quieter city, bought a modest house near a lake, and focused on philanthropy. The Brooks Memorial Scholarship expanded to 15 states, supporting over 300 students annually. I also started mentoring young entrepreneurs, especially those from difficult backgrounds. Sharing my story became easier over time, though I never sought publicity. Uncle Marcus retired fully, spending his days gardening and volunteering. We'd reached an unspoken understanding, not quite forgiveness, but acceptance. Aunt Patricia softened too, occasionally sending me emails about family updates. Trevor disappeared from my radar entirely, reportedly living in another state, working construction. Sophia and I remained close. She'd started her own consulting firm, thriving independently. One evening over dinner, she said, you know what's remarkable about you? You could have been bitter. You could have destroyed them. I shook my head. Bitterness would have destroyed me. She smiled. That's why you're different. I thought about that often. The Bennetts had given me pain, but that pain had forged something stronger. I'd learned self-reliance, resilience, and the value of true character over inherited wealth. My parents would have been proud. On the 10th anniversary of my parents' death, I visited their graves. I hadn't been there in years, too busy building my life. But that day felt important. I stood between their headstones, the morning sun warming my face. I made it, I said quietly. I didn't just survive. I built something. I helped people. I became someone you'd be proud of. The words caught in my throat, tears finally coming after years of holding them back. I told them about the scholarship fund, about the kids I'd helped, about saving the Bennetts despite everything. I told them about keeping Dad's journal close, following his wisdom. A breeze rustled the leaves around me, and for a moment, I felt their presence, a comforting warmth that whispered, we always knew you would. Later that day, I received a call from the scholarship program director. Kieran, one of our students just graduated top of her class from MIT. She wants to meet you. Her name was Amara. She'd lost both parents at 15, lived in foster care, and nearly gave up. Our scholarship had given her a chance. Now, she had a job offer from a major tech company. When we met, she hugged me tightly. You saved my life. I shook my head. You saved yourself. I just opened a door. At 29, I found myself in a place I'd never imagined, peaceful. I wasn't chasing anything anymore. I wasn't proving anything. I was simply living purposefully. I'd started dating someone I'd met through volunteer work, a teacher named Riley who had no idea about my background or money. We connected over books, long walks, and quiet conversations. It felt real, uncomplicated. One evening, Riley asked about my family. I hesitated, then told the whole story, the accident, the Bennetts, being thrown out, building my business, the eventual rescue. Riley listened without interrupting. When I finished, they said simply, "You're incredibly strong." I shrugged. I didn't have a choice. You did, Riley corrected gently. You could have become bitter, cruel, vindictive. Instead, you became generous. That perspective shifted something in me. I'd always focused on survival, on proving I could make it. But maybe the real victory wasn't the money or the success. Maybe it was maintaining my humanity despite everything. That night, I updated my father's journal with my own entries, documenting lessons I'd learned. One day, maybe I'd pass it on to someone who needed it. The cycle would continue. The Brooks Memorial Scholarship was hosting its 5th annual gala, a fundraising event that had grown larger each year. Over 800 people attended, donors, students, supporters. I was scheduled to give a speech, something I usually avoided. But the program director convinced me, these kids need to see you. They need to know where you came from. Standing on that stage, looking at the crowd, I saw faces from every background. Students in formal wear borrowed from friends. Donors in designer suits. Teachers who'd supported the program. And in the back, I spotted Sophia, Uncle Marcus, and even Aunt Patricia. I spoke from the heart. 10 years ago, I had nothing. No family support, no money, no safety net. I was told I'd never amount to anything. But I had something more valuable than money. I had determination and the memory of parents who believed in me. I talked about my father's journal, about learning to invest, about building Brooks Digital Solutions. I talked about the pain of abandonment and the choice to help others despite it. These scholarships aren't charity, I said. They're investments in resilience. Every student here has survived something that could have broken them. They're already winners. The applause was deafening. Students rushed the stage afterward, sharing their stories. After the gala, Uncle Marcus approached me hesitantly. That was powerful, he said. I'm sorry I made you feel worthless. I studied his face, genuine remorse lined every feature. I know, I said simply. Aunt Patricia stood beside him, dabbing her eyes. We were wrong about you. I didn't need their validation anymore, but I accepted it gracefully. Thank you. Trevor sent a message through Sophia weeks later. He'd gotten sober, found stable work, and was attending therapy. He wanted to apologize but understood if I never wanted to see him. I thought about it for days. Finally, I agreed to meet him at a quiet diner. Trevor looked different, thinner, clear-eyed, humble. I don't expect forgiveness, he started. I was a terrible cousin. I mocked you, excluded you, celebrated when you left. I was jealous because even with nothing, you had something I didn't, drive and character. I listened, appreciating his honesty. I'm rebuilding my life slowly, he continued. Working construction, saving money, trying to be better. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. I nodded. I appreciate that. Good luck, Trevor. We shook hands. It wasn't friendship, but it was closure. By my early 30s, I'd built a network of businesses and investments worth over $100 million. But my focus had shifted entirely to impact. I funded education programs, small business grants for struggling entrepreneurs, and mental health services for orphan youth. Riley and I got married in a small ceremony by the lake. No extravagant wedding, just close friends, Sophia, and a few family members who'd proven themselves. Uncle Marcus walked me down the aisle, a gesture that surprised everyone, including me. Your father would have been proud to do this, he whispered as we walked. Let me do it for him. I squeezed his arm, tears in my eyes. Life had come full circle in unexpected ways. The family that abandoned me had been humbled and transformed. The cousin who tormented me was rebuilding himself. The orphan nobody wanted had become the person everyone turned to. But the greatest victory wasn't financial or social. It was internal. I'd faced abandonment, poverty, and doubt, yet emerged with my compassion intact. I'd chosen kindness over bitterness, generosity over revenge. That evening, Riley asked me, "Do you ever regret how things happened?" I thought carefully before answering. No. The pain made me who I am. 5 years into our marriage, Riley and I adopted a teenager named Marcus, no relation to Uncle Marcus, just a coincidence. He'd been in foster care for 6 years after his mother died. He reminded me so much of myself at that age, quiet, guarded, brilliant. Bringing him home felt like closing a circle. I gave him my father's journal, now filled with both my dad's entries and my own. "Read this when you're ready," I said. "It's about building a life that matters." Marcus thrived under stability. He excelled in school, discovered a passion for engineering, and slowly opened up about his past trauma. Watching him heal healed something in me too. Uncle Marcus met young Marcus at a family dinner and teared up. "You're giving him what I failed to give you," he said quietly. "Thank you for being better than me." The scholarship program now supported over 1,000 students annually. We'd expanded internationally, helping orphan youth in 12 countries. The financial investment was significant, but the returns, measured in lives changed, were immeasurable. One student, Carlos, became a doctor and returned to his hometown to open a free clinic. Another, Destiny, started a nonprofit for homeless teenagers. They were creating ripple effects I could never have imagined. This was legacy. This was purpose. On my 35th birthday, I received an unexpected package. Inside was a worn photo album I'd never seen before. The return address was from Aunt Patricia. Her note read, "I found this in storage. It belonged to your mother. I should have given it to you years ago. I'm sorry for keeping it." I spent that evening flipping through pages of my childhood, my parents smiling, holding me as a baby, birthday parties, family vacations. Tears streamed down my face as memories flooded back. Here was proof of love I'd almost forgotten existed. The last page held a letter, written in my mother's handwriting, dated a week before the accident. It was addressed to me, meant for my 18th birthday. "Dearest Kieran," it began. "If you're reading this, something has happened to your father and me. I want you to know that you are loved beyond measure. You are smart, kind, and capable of anything. Life may be hard, but you carry our strength within you. Never forget, you are never truly alone. Build a life that makes you proud. We believe in you always. Mom." I held that letter against my chest and sobbed, for the parents I'd lost, for the scared 17-year-old I'd been, for the long journey that had led me here. Riley found me there and held me silently. The following year, I established the Brooks Foundation, consolidating all my philanthropic work under one umbrella. The foundation focused on 3 pillars: education for orphan youth, small business grants for underprivileged entrepreneurs, and mental health services for families in crisis. We hired a full staff, opened regional offices, and created sustainable programs that would outlive me. My goal was to build something that continued helping people long after I was gone. Young Marcus, now in college studying engineering, joined the foundation's youth board. Watching him advocate for other kids in foster care filled me with pride. He'd found his voice and his purpose. Sophia became the foundation's COO, bringing her organizational genius to scale our impact. Together, we'd created something that touched thousands of lives. Uncle Marcus volunteered regularly, mentoring young entrepreneurs through our business program. His transformation from dismissive guardian to humble servant leader was complete. Age and consequences had taught him lessons wealth never could. Even Trevor volunteered occasionally, sharing his story of recovery with teenagers struggling with addiction. He'd rebuilt his life slowly, steadily, and was finally at peace with himself. The family that had fractured had been rebuilt, different, humbler, but whole. On a quiet Sunday morning, I returned to the Bennett estate, now officially renamed Brooks House, a retreat center for foster families. Uncle Marcus had suggested the change, and I'd agreed. Walking through those halls, I remembered the scared kid I'd been, feeling unwanted and invisible. Now, these same rooms hosted families learning to heal, children finding stability, hope being rebuilt. In the main hall hung a large portrait, my parents, painted from an old photograph. Beneath it, a plaque read, "In memory of Thomas and Alicia Brooks, whose love and wisdom continue to inspire." Uncle Marcus stood beside me, both of us gazing at the portrait. "They'd be proud of what you've built," he said softly. I nodded, throat tight. "They taught me that wealth isn't about money. It's about what you do with it." That evening, Riley, young Marcus, and I sat by the lake behind our home. The sunset painted the water gold and orange. Marcus was telling us about his engineering project, eyes bright with excitement. I thought about the journey, from abandoned orphan to this moment of peace and purpose. Every hardship had taught me something. Every closed door had led to something better. "Dad?" Marcus said, using the title naturally now. "Thank you for choosing me." I pulled him close. "Thank you for letting us." 10 years had passed since I'd signed those papers in Uncle Marcus's study. The orphan they'd abandoned had indeed become the family's savior, but more than that, I'd become my own savior first. The Brooks Foundation now operated in 30 countries, supporting over 5,000 students annually. Young Marcus had graduated with honors and joined a prestigious engineering firm. Riley and I had adopted 2 more children, siblings who needed a home. Uncle Marcus passed away peacefully at 78, his final years spent in service and redemption. At his funeral, I spoke about forgiveness and second chances. Aunt Patricia held my hand throughout, tears streaming down her face. Trevor had rebuilt his life completely, married, sober, working as a counselor for young men with addiction. We'd never be close, but we'd found respect. I was 40 now, with gray threading through my hair. My net worth had grown substantially, but I'd given away more than half through the foundation. What remained was more than enough. Standing before a crowd of scholarship recipients at our annual gala, I shared my story one more time. I was thrown away at 17 with nothing but a bus ticket. But I had something nobody could take, determination and the memory of love. I paused, looking at the young faces before me. You all have that too. Your past doesn't define your future. Your circumstances are not your destiny. Build something that matters. Help someone behind you climb higher. That's how we break cycles. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Later, Riley found me on the balcony, staring at the city lights. "What are you thinking?" they asked. I smiled, pulling them close. "I'm thinking about how far we've come. How pain can transform into purpose. How the family that abandoned me needed me to save them, but really, I saved myself first." Riley kissed my cheek. "You saved a lot more than yourself." I nodded, thinking of the thousands of kids who'd found hope through our programs, the families we'd helped heal, the ripples spreading outward into the world. The orphan they'd abandoned had become more than a savior. I'd become proof that love, determination, and compassion could overcome anything. That was the real legacy, not the money or the success, but the lives touched and the cycles broken. As I stood there, I felt my parents' presence again, that familiar warmth whispering through the evening breeze. "We always knew you would." And for the first time in 28 years, I truly believed them.